Welcome to the show. I'm Jason Whitlock, and I'll tell you why Josh Rosen just proved he's the best quarterback in college football.
Slow down. And I'm Colin Cowherd, and I'll tell you why, despite the big win over Florida State, Bama's not the best team in the country. Speak for yourself starts now on a Tuesday. Hope you took advantage of that vacay day yesterday.
Bama beats the third-ranked team in the country, but they're not the best team in the country.
No.
All right, can't wait to hear that. Hello and welcome. Joining us today is Fox NFL analyst Tony Gonzalez and Super Bowl champ Eric Davis. Let's start with Ezekiel Elliott, whose future is still up in the air as he awaits a ruling on the temporary restraining order to stop his 6-game suspension over allegations of domestic violence. The court ruling is separate from the Elliott's appeal to the league, and the outcome of that hearing is also expected very soon. But Jason Garrett says the Cowboys are taking it in stride.
We're just going to prepare for the Giants, and Zeke will practice until someone tells him not to, and the other guys will get ready to play. I think Zeke has done an excellent job focusing on what he needs to do to get himself ready to play. I think our team has done that, and we just a normal day. We came in, we had meetings and a walkthrough on Saturday, and he was a part of it. Our whole team was a part of it, and again, our preparation for the Giants has begun.
All right, Cowherd, with all the uncertainty around Ezekiel Elliott, will it have any effect on the Cowboys this weekend?
I don't think it will, because I don't think they've emotionally built around him. I think this is all about Dak and the line and the coaching staff. And so I think in a way they've always known Zeke's wildly talented. There may be some maturity issues, so they haven't built around him. I think similarly with Dez Bryant. They know he's a super talent. We're not going to build around you. We're not going to rely on you, but we're going to use your talent. So I think Dallas is fine. I think Dallas's bigger issue is the Giants' defensive front. Gave them a lot of problems last year. They struggled to move the football, but I think they're okay.
Dez Bryant's head just exploded. He's kept his nose clean the last few years, and he just dragged him into this. Same with Dez Bryant. But no, listen. I don't even see this as uncertainty. Zeke's going to play week 1. No matter what, because this suspension is going to be litigated. It's no different than Tom Brady and how he avoided suspension for a long time. So I don't see any uncertainty here. I see the Cowboys going to face a very tough New York Giants defense, and I think Zeke, the offense, they're going to play well. I expect the Cowboys to get off to a hot start. I don't see any negative impact. In fact, after the way this thing is playing out, I think they're going to rally around Zeke. I didn't think this initially, but there's a good side to his story, and I think that they're going to have a little chip on their shoulder and feel like they're a little bit of a victim, a little martyr complex. I think they're going to play real well.
I agree with you that there's no uncertainty for week 1 because I think the NFL, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think the NFL won't make a ruling today, which means Zeke will play. And I don't think they'll make a ruling because that gives the power back to the NFL. I think it'll take a lot of this out of the court. Because if there's no judgment on the appeal, then the courts don't have anything. There's nothing for them to rule on, which means the power goes back to the NFL. So the suspension can then be enforced, but it'll be enforced down the road. So I disagree with you. I do believe the offense is built around Zeke. I do think they are building around him and expecting him to be a major part of it. They may lose him at some point. But if he's out, they're going to continue to run the ball. That's what this offense is all about.
Dak and Dez. It's Dak and Dez. Zeke's the side.
Yeah, Dak, Dez, and Ezekiel, too. Come on now.
And Zeke, come on.
He's a talented player.
He's
talented
a very talented
football player.
But I think this year is going to be about Dak.
They have
and Dez.
running back depth, actually. They've got really good backs.
That offense is going to be built around Zeke.
Yeah, and it is. And you saw it last year. And what about this, though? Bob McAdoo, head coach of the Giants. Ben McAdoo, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the
basketball player.
He can shoot, though.
Yeah.
But Ben.
Keep on.
So he came out and said that this defense, it doesn't matter who's out there. If we're talking about the Giant defense, he said, I don't care who's out there. If there's no place to run, it doesn't matter who's running the ball for him, which I love. I absolutely love that. Coming from your head coach, he's putting all the chips in on that defense to go out there, whether it's Ezekiel, whether it's Alfred Morris, whoever's back there. They're going to have no place to run. There's going to be no place to hide for that back. And you got to get behind a head coach that has that much confidence in that defense that it doesn't matter who's going to be there.
And remember last year, Dak's 2 worst games were against the Giants.
Oh, no, they couldn't move the ball.
Both times. And if they can't run the ball, that's what I'm saying. They are going to go into this game definitely building around the running game because they want to open things up to make it easier for Dak.
I would say this, though, about the running back position. I've talked to college coaches about this. There's a plug-and-play ability with running back, sometimes with corner. Like you can take a high school kid at the college level, and if a kid can cover and a kid can run, plug-and-play corner running back. I do think this is a position, because of the strength of the offensive line and an offensive-leaning staff, that if you did lose him for a month, I still think Dallas is really formidable. I think their issues are on the defensive side. I think the offensive side, they're really well coached, and that line takes C-plus running backs and makes them B running backs. I think they're still formidable without him.
I agree with what you're saying, but I think the thing we're overlooking here is I think Dez Bryant has a bit of a chip on his shoulder. Everybody's writing him out of the top 5 wide receivers. I think Dak Prescott has a bit of a chip on his shoulder. Everybody thinks last year was kind of a fluke, and let's see what he can do without Zeke. Dak and Dez had a terrific preseason. I think Dak and Dez are going to start the season out against one of the most talented defenses in the league, and they're going to put on a performance. And again, Zeke will be there as well, but I think this year in Dallas, it's about Dak and Dez. I think Zeke's super talented, but I think he's unreliable, and I think they know he's immature.
This is the Speak for Yourself podcast. I'm your host, Jason McIntyre. Before the show moves along, I wanted to tell you that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Audible is a leading provider of premium digital spoken audio information and entertainment on the internet. That means Audible content includes an unmatched selection of audiobooks, original audio shows, and more from the leading audiobook publishers, broadcasters, entertainers, magazine, and newspaper publishers. And good news, Speak for Yourself listeners, you can get a free audiobook with a 30-day trial at www.audible.com/speak. And unlike a streaming or rental service, with Audible, you own your books. Membership includes 1 free audiobook a month, as well as exclusive sales. Download and listen on any iOS device, Android, Amazon Fire tablets, or Windows Phone. Can I give you my personal Audible recommendation? Hatching Twitter by Nick Bilton. It's the inside story of how Twitter was created. It's got twists and turns, completely changed the way I look at Twitter. Listen to it on Audible. Remember, for your free audiobook with a 30-day trial, go to www.audible.com/speak. That's www.audible.com/speak for your free audiobook with a 30-day trial.
All right, well, with the NFL season opener just 2 days away, teams have finalized their rosters, but one notable player was left conspicuously unsigned, Colin Kaepernick. Now another big-name quarterback, Cam Newton, is taking issue with Kaepernick's lack of employment.
I really think it's unfair. I think it's unfair. But, you know, not to take any storm of glory away from this game. We're trying to find every way to be prepared for the 49ers come Sunday. But in my opinion, do I think Kaepernick is better than some of these starting quarterbacks in this league? Absolutely. Should he be on the roster? In my opinion, absolutely. There's no question about it. Is he good enough to be on the roster? Is he good enough to be a starting quarterback? Absolutely. But our main focus right now is trying to beat the 49ers on Sunday.
All right, Whitlock, we saw 2 more kind of marginal quarterbacks sign this weekend, Brock Osweiler, Joe Webb. Is Kaepernick's career over to you?
You know what? At this point, I'm moving to where I will be shocked if any team does sign him. When Joe Webb is getting a job, when Brock Osweiler is being celebrated in his return to Denver, I'm starting to think the league has moved on from Colin Kaepernick, and I don't blame him. I think everyone else thinks this is fantasy football, and the most talented guy. He should be in the league. The league has never been that. There's a whole package of things that executives, coaches evaluate, and Colin does check some of the boxes. Athletic, is he one of the top 40 quarterbacks in the league? Probably, but there's some other boxes he doesn't check, clearly, being a distraction, being a polarizing figure, doing something that irritates your fan base, bringing a conversation into your locker room that not everybody wants to have. He doesn't check those boxes, and the NFL's moved on. I'd be shocked if he gets a job.
Though I've always thought he's going to sign. Desperation changes a lot of ideology. Like if you're an owner or a GM and you're 7-6 and you're knocking on the door and your quarterback goes down. But I will say one thing I've noticed. For about 5 months, you could not be anti-Kaepernick on the internet. It was pro-Kaepernick space. then Shady McCoy, Tony Romo, Bill Cowher. Then he has that protest where Susan Sarandon's the biggest star. I do feel like if I'm a GM or an owner, 4 months ago, people were saying bad things about me. This owner's this and that. I kind of feel like he lost momentum. I thought that New York City protest, it was on a busy weekend. Nobody really showed up. Poetry readings, an actress, no NFL stars to support him.
No football
I thought it weakened him, at least in the eyes of GM saying, yeah, that story's kind of over. I can kind of go do my own thing now. I really did think it weakened him.
I think he has an opportunity to get back in the league. I don't think it's over. Reason being is that you can look at a list of names of the starting quarterbacks coming into week 1. And there are some guys you look at on that list and say, wow, he's starting. I think some of these guys, the worst thing that could possibly happen to them as backups is happening. They have to play. And when you play, it's going to show up on film. And once it shows up on film that you really just can't do the job, those GMs, those head coaches, they're going to say, okay, wait, we might have to look at some other guys, which gives him an opportunity to get someone else looking at him if some of these guys play themselves out of the league.
I think he's done. I don't think he's ever coming back. And I'll tell you why. The old talent trumps morals. Okay, he's not talented enough at this point. What he put on tape last time he was playing, it wasn't good enough to be a starting quarterback. And I think the ownership and the teams, it's not worth the headache. If he was good enough, you can do whatever you want, honestly. You can say whatever you want, and it happens all the time in the league. We give players second chances, domestic abuse, drunk driving, all these things, these terrible things and crimes that players commit, but they get second chances in the league. For whatever reason, this has struck a chord in America, and a lot of Americans say, if this guy's on your team, I'm not going to your game. So if you're in ownership, is it really worth having a guy who's not going to come in and make that big of an impact? Of course he's good enough. He's talented. We lost to him in the NFC Championship game. This guy can play. But at this point, if you're not a starting quarterback, an upper-level starting quarterback, it's not worth the headache from an ownership standpoint. They don't want that. They don't want that going on in the locker room. And as sad as it to say, now you look at the issue of, is it okay for domestic abuse? We'll let him back in, but we're not going to let him who's actually speaking up for a political message. That's not okay. In fact, that will get you banned from the league. It's such a dicey thing, and this is why it's so fascinating, and it's such great cooler room talk, and we talk about this and it's been going on forever and ever and ever, and we'll probably keep talking about it, but that's what makes it so fascinating.
You know what, Tony, but 16-4 with the 90% quarterback rating is actually good enough when you look at some of these guys that are playing.
But it's not worth that.
That's why I still think but on the worst team in the league.
I agree.
You know, that's not easy for me to say talking about the Niners, but they were the worst team in the league, not Cleveland.
Win.
They were the worst team in the league.
16-4.
No. When I'm talking about with the talent based out around him, and we talk about guys all the time. You give Andrew Luck the benefit of the doubt because he doesn't have a talent base around him to do what he's capable of doing. Yeah, but I'm still talking about what he's capable of doing. I'm not saying this guy is Andrew Luck, but I'm saying we give other guys the benefit of the doubt. I'm saying give this guy the benefit of the doubt that he could still play if he had more around it.
Here's the question, though, if you're Kaepernick, if you're Kaepernick support, a team has to feel like, can this guy help us win postseason games? That's the only reason to sign Kaepernick. If you're just trying to get to 8-8 or have a 6-10 season, why be bothered with Kaepernick and all the headaches?
I agree.
And so now you have teams sitting out there, oh, Kaepernick, could he be the difference in January? And at 29, at this point, what we've seen on tape the last 2 years, no one is sitting there thinking he's the difference in January.
Well, what Colin said earlier, if you are a team that's on the cusp and you're looking at some of these guys that are going to be starting as backups, and you're saying, if my guy goes down and I need someone to win a game in December, that's going to get me to January. If I need someone to win me 1 or 2 games, do I believe in these guys, or do I think that guy that beat him in the NFC Championship game could possibly show up? That's why I think he'll still get a shot.
Somebody told me this years ago. They said the only way you can make older rich people listen is to challenge their net worth or their life. Like, stop smoking or you'll die, or stop doing this or you'll go broke. And suddenly stubborn rich guys, listen, 7-6, 3 weeks to go, say what you want. If you're looking at a playoff home date or a playoff game, people change their minds. That's why I say, we can talk about records. If you're let's say Jay Cutler gets hurt. I mean, let's say Cam Newton gets hurt. you look around and you're like, does he fit our offense? I think ideologies change when you're staring at dollar signs or playoff potential.
All right, welcome back. Tony Gonzalez and Eric Davis are back. Let's move to Denver, where Brock Osweiler says it's, quote, incredible to be back in a Broncos jersey after an extremely disappointing 10 years in Houston and Cleveland. Brock will back up Trevor Siemian, meaning John Elway has again paired one of the league's best defenses with one of its worst quarterbacks. Cowherd, will Elway's handling of the quarterback situation derail the Broncos this season?
Well, yeah, I mean, they're not going to be good enough to win big games with those quarterbacks, but what Elway is finding out is outside of Brady in New England and maybe Green Bay with the Favre, Aaron Rodgers transition, is what Denver's finding out and Elway's finding out. It's hard to find franchise quarterbacks. This is what everybody's going through. Marino leaves, Miami's still looking. I mean, Elway left, they looked for 20 years. They thought Jake the Snake was the answer. Remember him? He was for about an hour. Listen, this is the NFL. This is why everybody's getting fired. That's why Belichick, by the way, keeps giving Brady pieces, offensive lines, like, don't hurt my guy, because Bill got fired in Cleveland when he couldn't find a quarterback. So Elway's figuring out this is the league.
Well, let's also give Elway credit for they won a Super Bowl with one of the league's worst quarterbacks named Peyton Manning. At that point, Peyton Manning was awful, and they won a Super Bowl because Von Miller and that secondary, the guys on the edge of Denver's defense, was the best in the league. And so I'm not ready to write Denver off. As long as Von Miller suits up, as long as Chris Harris and those secondary guys, so Aqib Talib, as long as those guys suit up, they have a chance to win games. And I know they're playing the AFC West. They'll have the worst quarterback situation in the AFC West.
By far.
But they'll have the best defense. And again, they did it with Peyton Manning. I don't know if they can do it with Trevor Siemian. I don't know if he brings the intangibles. But, I've seen them do it before. They may pull it off again.
I think Osweiler will actually end up being the starting quarterback before the season's over, and I think they'll be okay. This is a defensive team. We think of the Denver Broncos, and you think of Elway. You think of Terrell Davis, and you think of the offense and what they've done. Elway has built this team to be a defensive team. He's put the money on that side. He understands the importance of what they're capable of doing, and they're not a good defense. He's trying to build an elite defense on that side. So you need some play out of the quarterback position. Remember, Osweiler is the guy that he was offering a contract to. He wanted him to stay. He just wasn't trying to pay him the big money because he knows what he can do. He raised him. And I think that now he got the guy at the price that he wants him at, okay? He got him at the price he wants him at, and he knows that he can run the offense. He was 5-2 running that offense. Osweiler is probably better in this offense than any other offense he tried to play in. So I think they'll be okay.
I think they'll be okay. Obviously, this is an offense that he's familiar with, but this is the fourth best team in the AFC West. I don't think those other three teams
They finished fourth.
I think they finished last in that league this year. Absolutely.
Really?
I think it's the Chiefs, the Raiders, and I don't sleep on San Diego. Look at the quarterbacks in this league, and in this league, we all know what drives a team. What makes a team great? Either a legendary, not a good defense, a legendary defense, or you better have a franchise quarterback. They don't have that. Trevor Siemian has not proved that yet. Brock Osweiler has absolutely proved he is not that guy. He is not that guy. Getting cut by two teams and traded, and now you're back where you just started from. Kudos for him landing on a team, but this definitely, I don't think this upgrades them by any long shot.
The other thing is, it is easy to say Peyton Manning's numbers weren't very good at the end. But even if you go back to that Super Bowl, there was a certain mechanism upstairs above the shoulders with Peyton. Peyton was good in the locker room. Peyton was a leader. Peyton could audible out of bad plays. Like saying, well, Peyton was bad and they won with that defense isn't saying Brock Osweiler, who's limited. Peyton's probably the best pre-snap quarterback of our lives. And
Post-snap was the problem for Peyton.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
It was. No, I'm saying
last year post-snap was an issue.
No,
You didn't have to do too much with that.
But remember, that Peyton had intangibles, experience, big game, knowing what not to do. So I look at the AFC right now, and I see young guys like Marcus Mariota, and I look at Denver, and I just don't.
You remember Von Miller, what he did to Cam Newton in that Super Bowl?
Yeah.
And what that defense did? Great defense is more reliable, in my view, than great offense. particularly in January. Now, again, they got to make it to January. They got to make it to the playoffs.
Denver may have one advantage. There could be 3 teams tanking in the AFC. Jets, Buffalo, and Jacksonville. Those teams, you could get to bad starts, and they're like, let's get into the Darnold, Rosen sweepstakes. NFC doesn't have that. San Francisco's not great, but I don't think they're tanking. So the best news for your Denver Broncos is there's some W's on that board you don't get in the NFC.
There, but I do like Elway.
Welcome back, Eric Davis here, joined now by the Fox lead college football analyst, Joel Klatt. He got a pretty good opener. Let's move to the Rose Bowl. Wow. Where Josh Rosen put up 491 yards. Was that just in the fourth quarter? And 4 touchdowns, leading UCLA to the second biggest comeback in FBS history and stunning Texas A&M. Elsewhere in LA, the guy some people have anointed the best quarterback in the city, Sam Darnold, wasn't quite as impressive, didn't throw as much. 2 picks, no TDs, and a close win over Western Michigan. Whitlock has Rosen already passed Darnold as the best quarterback in LA.
Without question.
Oh, come on.
Hey, that performance, we will never see a better performance this year than what that kid did in the fourth quarter after getting his tail beat.
Oh.
He has less talent than Darnold around him. He carried that team. He took a beating. That was like a combination of Phil Simms, who I thought was the toughest guy in the pocket I've ever seen, with Joe Montana's throwing skills. Yes, he's better than Sam Darnold, and if I'm the New York Jets or anybody else, he better be the #1 pick.
Okay. By the way, do you know the last game played at the Rose Bowl? Oh, Sam Darnold was great in that one against Penn State.
And he was really good in that fourth quarter, too.
Bottom line is,
44-10.
you are looking at 2 unbelievable quarterbacks, and we're going to go back and forth on this. This is going to be asked producers every week.
Yeah.
And it's going to be dependent on who
No,
you
I'll have
play.
the same answer.
No, I'm telling you.
You're not going to trump that performance.
Hold on, though, because it's not just one performance. Now, you may be right, and once we get to the draft, it might be Josh Rosen. What we need to understand, though, is that the body of work is being created as we speak, okay? So the film that these NFL decision makers are going to watch is the film that we just saw be put out there this last weekend. I thought Darnold struggled at times because he was trying to force the issue. That's human nature. When you've been told you're the face of college football and you're coming out there with young wide receivers, in particular the interception he threw across the middle of the field, it was tipped by the linebacker. He was forcing that into triple coverage. He had an easy throw to his left side. He's going to correct some of those mistakes. Meanwhile, if the interception that Texas A&M has in their hands, if that's made, it's a different story.
It changes
it's a
the
different
game.
conversation. So I don't want to swing wildly
The
either
biggest
direction.
word in the dictionary, if.
I know, I get it. And listen, Brady threw some questionable throws in that Super Bowl in the comeback. I will say this, though. What I loved most about Rosen, and I think the NFL decision makers are going to look at that game and they're going to really raise their eyebrows, he never yelled at a teammate or a coach or slammed his helmet. He was getting beat up to a pulp in the first half.
And that was the question about him.
And that was the question, his attitude, things that, and he just kept hanging in there, and brought him back. So to that extent, Jason, I think he answered a lot of questions for the NFL.
That's a great one.
Yeah, I'm not going to flip the guys just yet. I agree in the fact that he stayed calm. He was poised. He throws a pretty ball. I was saying earlier, he made a couple of throws, and I was like, okay, he can spin it. But you got to look at the fact, and evaluators are going to look at the fact that the ball went through the DB's hand. There's an opportunity there for an interception. The ball was 3-4 yards underthrown. Those things do come into play when you start evaluating this guy. I'm not talking. He took a beating, and that should have been an interception to continue the beating. So these are some things.
The physical beating.
I understand the physical beating, and so he got up. Right now, when you start to look at his toughness, okay, he's a tough guy.
Yeah.
He throws a good ball. He didn't lose his poise and start yelling and screaming in that situation. But now he also didn't play the perfect game. When you say you'll never see that great a performance offensively, you might not see one that poor defensively.
By the way, Darnold wouldn't get hit that much because he would escape the pocket.
Different style of player.
Yes.
Totally different
He played
player.
a MAC team with a first-time head coach.
But when
Or
Darnold
first-year
last
head
year
coach.
played Washington, when Darnold played, for instance, in that first half, Darnold would have made plays with his feet. So they're totally different players. Rosen is a more refined pocket player.
Sure.
Darnold, and I would say, you know what, I said this, Jared Goff was always a poor man's Matt Ryan. To me, Rosen's a better version of Matt Ryan. Darnold's
Or his
luck,
equal.
Favre, instinctive.
You know who I think Darnold is, Colin? As we're talking about comparables, he's kind of a Stafford type. He's going to extend the play, be a little bit of a gunslinger, non-traditional motion.
What game did y'all watch?
And
What-
wait,
what-
hold on.
can I ask you-
I want to say,
No,
can
this
both
guy
guys
was-
be good?
this guy was there calling the game.
Can
No,
both guys
can
be good?
Did y'all see the play when the guy's rolling out to the left, under pressure from two people, throws the
did.
touchdown? You were there.
Yeah.
And,
It was
and
amazing.
somehow Darnold is somewhere on another universe.
No,
Did you
no,
see?
I'm
Wait,
not
hold
saying
on,
that.
hold on. Did you see the play? And you were there. Did you see the play where the corner blitzed off? They had two tight ends. Said the corner blitzed outside, and Rosen had no awareness whatsoever that a guy was coming to hit him in the beak. I mean, where you talk about a quarterback. I mean, I understand that, but you also want a quarterback to be able to feel that, move away from it, get rid of the ball. Those things matter.
Here's the couple of moments that I was really impressed. He had, inside of 4.5 minutes, he had 2 fourth-down opportunities. One, he completes the ball to Caleb Wilson on a big play, and they keep moving the chains. And then the other one was right before the touchdown. A&M brings an all-out blitz. He runs a little swing route to the left side, and so it's the short side of the field. It's to his left, and he throws it right over the linebacker and dumps it into the hands of Soso Jamabo. That was as impressive as
By the way,
it gets.
why all the proclamations? Can't you just enjoy life?
Yeah, man.
Are you kidding? Listen, I like Darnold, but I love this Rosen kid. I love that game. Gus and Joel calling that game.
good.
I
That
felt
was a
like
good game.
I love football, man. That was wonderful.
All right, welcome back. Joel Klatt here again, joined now by the founder of the Big Lead, Jason McIntyre. Let's return to college football. Terrific weekend. Both Bama and Ohio State. Strong opening weekend with the Buckeyes topping Big Ten foe Indiana. They were on the road, and Bama dominating number 3 Florida State in the second half. Both teams still atop the latest AP poll. Bama number 1, Buckeyes number 2. Whitlock, who's the better team after week 1?
Bama, and I can't wait to hear you and Joel try to convince me that Ohio State beating up a scrappy but overmatched Indiana team is somehow more impressive than what Alabama did to Florida State. The floor is yours. Alabama's Nick Saban is the best team in football right now.
Well, my takeaway is this is going to be a year when you're going to have to produce something at quarterback because USC's got a good one, and Clemson looks like they have a good one, and Ohio State's is experienced. And I start looking around, Penn State, I look at all these teams, Jalen Hurts is easily the most limited quarterback of your top 10 teams, and I think it eventually is going to bite Alabama. I think J.T. Barrett's 27-4 as a starter. They've added...
Can't throw straight.
10 yards of completion. He gets more criticism because Ohio State only seemingly plays big games. I think Alabama can't throw the ball down the field, and eventually it'll catch up to them.
You know, I thought both teams were great. And that's what, this is kind of like debating Rosen or Darnold, right? It's like, can I have both? Because they're both great teams. And I thought they both showed us they are who we thought they were coming into the season. But for me, there was a couple of questions on each side for me. Alabama, were they going to be able to be more efficient throwing the football, in particular down the field? Was Hurts going to progress as a passer? For Ohio State, the question was, would they develop any explosiveness on the outside and get some skilled position players that were going to threaten the defense? Well, after week 1 at least, and granted, they faced Derwin James in Florida State and maybe the best secondary in college football, but the question was answered in the affirmative only for Ohio State. I still have those questions about Jalen Hurts and Alabama and Brian Daboll and what they're going to be as an offense. But Ohio State showed me if you get the ball to J.K. Dobbins or Paris Campbell or Johnny Dixon or when Mike Weber comes back and he's back this week against Oklahoma, they are gone. And they didn't have that dimension a year ago. So I know that Ohio State is better than a year ago. I don't know if Alabama is better than they were a year ago. That's why, for me, I put them at the top of my poll.
Yeah, I never want to overreact to week 1 stuff. But, Colin, you mentioned quarterback. Did you see what the kid at Indiana did to Ohio State? Richard Legow, I believe is his name. Mm-hmm. He's not a pro prospect. He threw for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. I know he threw 65 times. But my question marks are in the Ohio State secondary. They lost some professionals there to the NFL. But I got to say, Alabama, I got to side with Whitlock. Did you see that suffocating defense? FSU had 65 yards in the second half. That's it. And for me, Alabama's going to get it done running the football and Joel with the defense. And I got to lean for now, Alabama.
Oh, was that Alabama throwing deep downfield? Oh, yeah. I thought they couldn't do that.
not literally, but that was basically all they had in the passing game was that pass, that play.
I did see their
Calvin Ridley.
defense. Look, listen, I don't even understand. How are y'all on Ohio State when the best team in the Big Ten, based on week 1, would be Michigan?
Michigan doesn't. If you watch Ohio State and you watch Michigan, just eye test, longer, faster, deeper Ohio State.
Okay, but concede this. Indiana's a middling team in the Big
Yes.
Ten. Florida is an elite
by
team
the
in the
way,
SEC.
I saw Indiana in the bowl games, and I will say this. Simi Cobbs is a rare receiver. And so while those numbers were fantastic for Richard Legault, they were basically fade routes. I mean, one-on-one fade route after fade route after fade route after fade route. It's not like he picked them apart in the passing game.
By the way,
that's a difference for me, and I know it's a
Okay, biggest game in Indiana school history on the road. Big difference between neutral field. Ohio State went on the road, and you know those Thursday night games, like upset city, and for a half struggled.
I'm from Indiana.
No, Colin,
We don't
Indiana
play football
led
in
late
Indiana.
in the third quarter.
We don't play football in Indiana.
That was a very-
at the Indiana University. Listen. I get it. I just don't understand why. And again, it may be proven out over time. Ohio State may be the best team, but why can't we just, based off of one team played the third-ranked team in the country with a bunch of pros out there, beat them up pretty bad. One team played a bottom-of-the-barrel Big Ten team, middling Big Ten team.
Indiana is not bottom of the barrel.
They're middle of the pack.
500.
You're asking me to
They're
project.
a bit above 500. They're
You're-
going to win 7, maybe 8 games.
You're asking me to project, and I'm saying that I think Ohio State, in the end, is more complete.
No, I'm not asking you to project. I'm asking you to evaluate what we saw in week 1.
And I saw an Alabama team that can't throw the ball down the field.
Well, again, Florida State returned 9 defensive starters from last year. I mean, this is a very good
Great
defense.
There's
Yeah.
no doubt. And again, I'll point to Alabama a year ago. They could get after the passer. They were a little bit better in certain areas than this Alabama team. Meanwhile, Ohio State, save for maybe the secondary, they're better in every regard. In particular, getting after the quarterback. Those defensive ends for Ohio State, they remind me of what Bama was a year ago with the Ryan Andersons of the world. Now, all of a sudden, Tyquan Lewis is coming around the corner. He got a couple of sacks against Indiana. When they get a lead, it's going to be lights out.
Why do you constantly doubt Nick Saban?
It's
I'm
not that
not doubting. I mean, he's great.
Just
He's
because we
great.
offer a
I'm
little,
mostly talking to Colin.
we offer a
objective.
little
He doesn't like
resistance
Nick
to
Saban.
your fandom.
You don't like Nick Saban.
I like him.
He's the greatest coach in college football, and maybe all of football, other than Bill Belichick.
Really?
Yeah.